Welcome to Playfully Orange, our conversations on Thursday afternoons about arts and culture here in Central Florida. And I'm delighted to have as my guest today, Vicki Landon, longtime arts advocate and arts administrator in Central Florida. Welcome, Vicki.
Thank you, Terry. It's great to be here.
So you spent maybe a decade at the Rep, but now you're in a new position at CFC Arts.
I sure am. I think I'm about 2 months into my tenure now at Central Florida Community Arts. I am one of 3 vice presidents that have been instilled at the organization. So I'm over development and community affairs. That's everything sort of external and marketing and fundraising. And then we have Justin Machoni, who's been with CFC Arts since it was founded, since that infamous garage meeting 11 years ago, as our orchestral programs director. And he is now our vice president of creative and production. So over all of our actual production work. And then the storied Terrence Hunter, who's been on staff there as the programs director for about 2.5 years, is now the vice president of operations and education. So that's over our School of Arts and Health Academy, as well as just the day-to-day running of the business. And so between the 3 of us, we've got almost every bucket covered at the organization.
So when you were like 5 years old, you're like, I want to be an arts administrator? Or tell us, how did you get into this?
maybe not quite at 5, but it started pretty young. It did. My very first involvement in arts and culture was in theater and orchestra in middle school, actually. And there was orchestra did not work out well for me. That was not a good pan for me, but I very much enjoyed my time in theater. And I sort of found myself sometimes on stage, but usually volunteering to be on the publicity committee or volunteering to help make the program for the show. And it's funny, I never considered it at the time, but looking back at it now, it's pretty clear I've been more of the administrator in the arts and cultural community since probably age 12 or 13. And I think it's been a love of mine ever since. I think if you have a heart for the art and a head for the business, you sort of owe it to the sector to go into arts administration. I say this with all of the love in my heart for artists, because I wish I could be one and I'm not. But the worst thing in the world is for the artist to have to run the business. That's not their expertise. It's not what makes them happy at the end of the day. So if the managing directors and executive directors and development directors of the world can keep the business up and running, it gives the artist the freedom to do the art and really lie where their strengths are. And I might not be on stage. I might not be working a fly system or operating a spotlight or singing a note, but because of my efforts, somehow at the end of the day, art got to happen. And that's what fulfills me.
That's great. So I think the middle school and your growing up years were in South Florida. How did you get to Central Florida?
I came to Central Florida to become a UCF Knight. I graduated in the early 2000s from UCF with my bachelor's of arts and theater, fell in love, of course, with theater and literature. Wasn't quite sure what I was going to do with that degree. So to quote a dear former friend of mine, I ran back to the bosom of Mother Academe and got my master's degree also at UCF in theater with a focus on history and literature and criticism and, hey, technical writing about a really ethereal thing, which preps one to write a government grant proposal, it turns out. And started my career at the Orlando Opera Company just pre-recession. And then just shortly post-recession, joined the team at Orlando Rep, where it was about 10.5 years in my role with that family there before making the switch.
What has been your crowning achievement in that time?
Oh my goodness. There's a ton. I think my crowning achievements during this time really are around the staff and corporate culture that we got to create at the Rep. You know, we were blessed with a bevy of really great leaders and Jeff Rebels and Chris Brown and Gene Columbus. And it resulted in the Rep reaching the Top 100 award, the Orlando Sentinel Top 100 companies to work for twice, being really supported by the staff and knowing that we had all of our turnover was the person who got plucked up and promoted to go work at the Kennedy Center or do something gigantic. I think really shoring up your house, making sure your staff is supported and emboldened and given authority and space to grow. It's a culture that not every business has on this earth. And I think I'm really proud of what we were able to create there with it.
Yeah, that's great. So you've come from a theater that does musical theater to an organization that started with music, but also does theater. How is that transition going? And
Oh,
what differences or similarities do you see?
it's been great. It's been great. Like theater is my heart. It's my degree. It's my first and most important love. But I love live music. I appreciate dance, although I cannot do it. Two left feet on me. I love orchestral music. I'm a big fan. For ages, we've been ticket holders for the Philharmonic and the Bach Festival and seeing performances. And it's really exciting for me to serve a bit of a broader artistic audience as opposed to, look, the Rep was the state of Florida's only full-time professional theater for young audiences. We're talking really niche specific work. And it's been kind of invigorating to do something much, much broader. And it's also been a little interesting because, in some ways, art is not what CFC Arts does. Art is the tool that we use, but what we're actually doing is creating a community. We're creating a place for the architect who hasn't picked up the trombone in 20 years, or the accountant who hasn't been in choir since middle school, who wants a place to come together and sit in a room and make music with someone else and find that magic. That's where we are. So we create community and togetherness, and art is just the tool that we use to do it. And that's been a bit of a shift from a professional arts organization focused on the creative professional project. It's been a shift and an interesting one for sure.
Yet, you said your crowning achievement was basically about the community that you built at the Rep.
That's
So
true.
sounds like it's a fit still.
Synchronicity.
Yes. So I know you've traveled to some other places in this country and seen some arts, and you've explored music in Ireland. What has been the most outstanding arts experience you've had in your life?
Ooh. Oh my goodness, Terry Olson. I splurged money I did not have as an arts administrator. A couple years ago, I brought my very Southern husband, who had never been to New York City before, to Manhattan. And I splurged to see Alan Cumming reprise his role as the MC in Cabaret. And I didn't quite tell my husband exactly what the tickets cost or exactly what the experience is going to be. But we, of course, the theater at Studio 54 had converted so that the first few rows are all set up as cabaret tables on floor seats before you have standard seating. And I was able to get us the first cabaret table right on the corner of the stage. And the minute the Kit Kat girls come out pre-show and start sort of stretching and limbering up right on that stage, my husband was sold. But I got to see Alan Cumming performed just such an iconic role in one of my favorite pieces of musical theater. And I got to see it like 4 feet away from the edge of the stage. So I think that is probably my most memorable arts experience.
Cool. Wonderful. Well, so of all your experiences and the things you've learned, what's one thing that you wish Orlando had?
Ooh. Mass transit.
Okay.
I wish Orlando had more mass transit, because I think what it leads to, increased density in neighborhoods, increased walkability. I think that creates this sort of hyper local sense of identity. And we're starting to see it with the naming of neighborhoods in Main Street districts. But I think the ability to walk out your house and walk to a corner cafe before walking to an arts experience, whether it be at a museum or a live concert, and walk home, I think it creates an incredible sense of identity and pride to know that this is not just in your city or in your state or in your region, this is in your neighborhood. So I think denser, walkable, more identified neighborhoods, I think that's a tangential answer to like, what do we need arts and culturally? I think it supports the consumption of arts and culture.
Well, coming from the Rep in Lock Haven, which has a concentration of arts right near some train tracks that have no train at night.
That's true.
Usually, I can understand that a lot. Well, Vicki, thank you very much for joining us for this short conversation. Appreciate all you have done to help the Rep grow, to help our arts communities as a whole. You are a well-spoken advocate for the arts, and we appreciate that.
Thank you so much. And come see Holiday Homecoming at Northland Church tonight and tomorrow night. Big choir extravaganza. Someone from Terry Olson's own office will be on stage.
Yes, indeed. All right. Thanks, everyone. And thank you all for watching. Again, Thursday afternoons, Playfully Orange. I also do Diverse Orange Tuesday afternoons, talking about diversity in our community. So thanks, everyone.